shall we start with your introduction first, and then we'll move on to the topic? Yeah. And thanks a lot
Sure.
for nominating
Yeah.
yourself for being a speaker on this topic. So, a couple of people have asked me to schedule a session on this topic, but I was not able to schedule earlier because of lack of speakers. So, thanks a lot. Thanks for joining in. Yeah. So,
Sure. Sure.
yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Please start with your introduction first.
Okay. Sure. So, hi everyone. Good evening. My name is Chirag. I'm working as a cybersecurity data privacy professional in one of the NBFC within India. So overall, I have around 5 years of professional experience working in this domain specifically. So after completing my master's, I joined this area as an information security uh, consultant. Then after 2 years, I was looking after cybersecurity and data privacy also. So overall, I have a good exposure in this area. So I'd like to share my thoughts around cybersecurity. So as I was informed by Shipraji that this in this forum we have a diverse audience, so I have tried to keep it very simple in terms of sharing my insights, how cybersecurity impacts us in our day-to-day life, and I'll try to share some practical examples which we day-to-day face in our dealings with technology or different things. And I would also uh, ask the audience to share in between your thoughts, feedback, or if you have any question. So we'll try to keep this session interactive. I'll not be speaking for very long. I'll be taking a pause and asking you certain things. You may also ask and share your point of view during the session. So I'll start the session. So first of all, what is cybersecurity? Just in a simplest term, cybersecurity involves protecting systems, networks, data from digital attacks. So these attacks could be in the different forms, maybe in the form of a phishing email, which you are getting, or maybe through SMS, which is called smishing, or in a form of wishing, like a calling. You get sometime calls pretending to be a legitimate call, which is called in cybersecurity language phishing attack. So there could be multiple scenarios which can lead to compromise of our data, and in a way can lead to attack. So we'll be talking about these terms. So in very easy term to understand, cybersecurity involves protecting systems, network, and our personal data from these kind of attacks. So why it is important to us? So as I was mentioning during my introduction, we increasingly rely on technology for personal as well as our professional activities. We are using laptops, smartphone, so many other tools and technologies. So there is intrinsic risk of cyber threats when we use these kind of technologies. So cyber security helps us so safeguard our information and maintain a level of privacy and ensure smooth operations on our digital systems. So having a basic understanding of different type of threats, what are different type of threats uh, to the information security or cyber security, which we deal with on our day-to-day basis, and how we can protect against that. So that will be our agenda for today during this interaction. So starting with the one of the primary example, practical example, which we face in our daily life is about email phishing. We communicate a lot for email, uh, like whether it is a personal email or a professional email on a day-to-day basis. And sometime you would have seen, because nowadays whenever you have to register for an app, you have to give your email ID, whether it is a grocery app or a food delivery app like Zomato, Swiggy, or any other app. Everybody is asking for your email ID, which is a bare minimum. And even for that matter, so many other apps as well. So whenever you visit a particular website, they also captures. So for example, if you have logged in through your email ID to a particular browser, whether it is a Chrome browser or Edge browser, so whatever websites you are visiting, they also gets access to your email ID specifically. So in a way, whatever we are visiting digitally, it gives a digital footprint of ours in terms of bare minimum email IDs and cookies that are stored on our laptop. So you would be receiving a lot of emails from different um, channels, like whether it is a marketing email, or sometime you would be getting an email for that you have so and so loan approved from so and so bank, or they'll be giving some offers to you. Sometimes these mails would be containing some attachments in that. So these are some of the practical scenario which we observe in our day-to-day life as well. So while you are receiving an email, you have to be very vigilant about it. So from whom you are getting the email. So whenever you are getting an email, firstly verify the recipient or the sender who is sending you an email, whether it is a professional or personal. This applies to both these scenarios. Who is sending you, what is the content. Sometime somebody pretends to be from a bank, and they'll be giving you certain attractive offers. Sometimes they would be offering you certain vouchers, and once you click on that link, they'll be downloading some malicious software or bot on your system at backend, and which in a way can compromise your data. So this I'm trying to explain you not very technically, but in a layman term. I know what can go wrong when you click on those kind of attachments. Sometimes they have some executable file in that as an attachment, which gets installed onto your PC as a backdoor, and which can lead to compromise of your data. And if that, for that matter, if you are on your official system, we have seen in past this type of phishing email can lead to compromise of company's data, or sometime to a ransomware attack. So if you study on your Google or some cybersecurity reports as well, you'll see one of the primary factor, whatever companies has been compromised, or they have been attacked through a ransomware. The primary reason was one of the employee accessed an email or clicked on a link which was not authorized. So that's very important. So this is one of the practical area where we can be vigilant, and which we can practically observe, why cybersecurity is important. So today, in today's age, it's not like different type of attacks are happening to us, which will directly impact to us physically, I mean to say. But this is one of the things which will not realize, but it is impacting all of us gradually, day by day. So understanding this will help us to be vigilant about it whenever we deal with such email communication, and we can safeguard ourselves. Even we can educate others in our family. We see a lot of people get different type of email, different type of messages, different type of calls. Somehow or other, here and there, they get fished in those kind of mails, and they end up losing some money in a way. And you would also have seen different kind of this techniques which hackers are using. Sometimes they are pretending to be a caller, fraudster caller, which is pretending to be a person who is calling from a custom office, which was a recent one. A lot of people were getting calls like it was pretending to be a custom officer, and they were saying so and so family members of yours, is being arrested and like that. So you have to be very vigilant about these kind of phishing attacks, smishing attacks, and phishing attacks, basically. So anybody, if anybody would like to share their thoughts on this and practical experience, if they would have seen, in their colleagues, peers, or family, if somebody was victim of that kind of a attack, or somebody would like to share their thoughts, I'll just take a pause for 10 seconds. If anybody wants to share your views, you can definitely do that before we proceed to, the next example of ours.
Yeah, Chirag. So, yeah, these attacks and these threats are real. I've seen in my family as well. So, we got to know one
Mm.
day, all of a sudden, that my father-in-law, clicked on some link,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden he
Yes.
started getting all, a full load of SMS messages saying that he has purchased this, he has
Yeah.
purchased that, he has purchased that, and OTPs start coming on his phone. And within a matter of 15
Yeah.
20 minutes, he lost some 1.5 lakhs to 2 lakh rupees, all debited directly
Yes.
from his
Yes.
account just because he clicked on one link. So our seniors, right, our parents, and even the kids,
Yeah.
right, they are not very well versed with these attacks, and it becomes
Yeah.
tricky to educate them and make them aware of such things. But they are real in real life. So once I was visiting a bank, and there was a father and a daughter. So daughter was like 12, 13 years old, and they were standing in front of me, and they were reporting this attack that happened on them. So someone asked, gave them a call and asked them to click on the link, and the daughter was she was hardly 12, 13 years max, right, and she was not aware, and she clicked on that link, and all of a sudden the bank account got over within a matter. So again, we were
Yeah.
reporting, and bank was like, we can't do anything, you have to go to cyber cell and make a report there. And they were telling them to go to some other sector, and we know all how these things work. So you'll keep going from one place to another, and you won't get anything out of it, right? At the end, you'll be like, enough is enough, and let me bear the loss myself. So nothing happens if you have lost the money, right? No one will help you. So it's very important for us to
Right.
be
Right.
vigilant all the time, and not click on any unattended emails or SMS links and all. So,
Yes.
so that's very true. I'd like to invite
Yes.
others also to share their experiences, if any, so that we can make the session more interactive, and we can also make other people aware that these cyber threats um, are very crucial. Yeah. So please do join us on stage and share your experiences as well. So Chirag, one question. So keeping aside what we need to do, I think you'll be covering that. But what is a role of a BA, in all these threats that happens, or cybersecurity domain? So how a BA can help, or what a BA does in
Yeah.
this domain?
Sure. Yeah. So I'll cover that aspect definitely.
Mhm.
So there are two aspects to it. Definitely, in a journal, this is very important for us as an individual to safeguard ourselves, our data. But as far as BAs are concerned, specifically within our organization, also, if I take example, we have a lot of business analysts and project manager, PLs working. So we also have different kind of sessions internally for those users. So as in BA, if you see, we as a BA, a person handles with a lot of sensitive data. Sometime working on some functional specification, coordinating with business teams, or a lot of time they are working some business flow which are proprietary to the organization. Maybe directly it could not be customer data, but a lot of time they deal with a lot of customer data also while doing testing for certain functionalities or getting certain business requirements developed. So they have to in a way deal with a lot of critical data which is critical to the organization, critical to the customers of the organization, and which is a proprietary information of the organization. So for them, understanding cybersecurity helps a lot in assessing the risk, and ensuring the system they are working in whether protected against the threats. For example, if they are analyzing financial data and knowing how to safeguard that information or protect them from breaches could give them a added advantage over others, because nowadays you'll see there are people working, and the people who have knowledge of cybersecurity, information security, data privacy will definitely have an added advantage over others. They would be knowing, and it would be very easy for them to collaborate within their information security team and IT team, because they would be understanding those terminologies, basic terminologies, the concepts. And while when they would be dealing with those data, they would be vigilant about it. So understanding this basic terminology will help them a lot, having an added advantage over others working in the industry, as well as they would be able to protect companies' data and working with all ethics and all. So this definitely helps a lot, specifically BAs and project managers, because nowadays you will see, specifically in financial industry, there is whether it is a bank, NBFC, insurance company, or other industries, there are a lot of regulation and scrutiny from regulators, whether it is RBI, SEBI, specifically talking about Indian context, and as well as other sectorial regulations are also becoming more and more stringent. So this these things helps a lot as an organization, because they have to meet those compliances, otherwise they'll be bearing financial losses, regulatory non-compliances. So they also, in a way, want their employees to be vigilant about it. Not only just people working in their cybersecurity team, definitely they are the responsible ones, but it is the responsibility across the organization. So definitely this helps a lot, not only to the BAs, but overall, whatever role and designation we are working in our organization, understanding cybersecurity helps them a lot.
Yeah,
So
makes sense.
yeah,
And I think, it is even more crucial for support BAs and support teams who, sometimes do
yes,
get exposed to the production to the live environment. So,
yes,
support environments, we can do data encryption, data obfuscation, and other things. But sometimes in life,
yes,
we don't control these things because otherwise people will not be able to work, right? But they do give read-only access to support teams to ensure that they are able to assess any issues that the team is facing. And,
yes,
it becomes even more crucial for, such support BAs to ensure that they are complying to data protection laws, they are complying to data privacy, they're not sharing that information, over personal emails, they are not taking screenshots and, or doing other things which might, um, result into to the organization or even, they can lose their job
mm,
as well, just because there's some mistake. So yeah, it's very important.
right, right. Okay,
Yeah. And some companies have very
okay,
stringent laws. I remember I heard, someone being asked to move out of the company just because they uploaded some holiday tracker and it was not over Gmail, and they said it's confidential information. So even small things matter, right? So you have to be very extra careful when you're working in an IT industry because you deal with data day in,
yeah,
day out, and you are more
yes.
susceptible
I
and
mean,
more prone to breaching the laws or regulatory requirements.
yes, yes, yes. Even I was, as I was mentioning, nowadays company having very stringent IT and cybersecurity policies. Like you gave example, like I also work on the similar lines, where we monitor different type of activities the end user is doing within the organization. So I have a team working with me. They monitor whatever mails are being sent, from your official email ID, outside email IDs or organization, what kind of content you are sharing in those email IDs. So everything is being monitored through DLP solutions, security operation centers, and those kind of incidents are getting reported. So whether you are BA or anyone working in the organization, so it matters a lot. You understand these kind of things, because you may be thinking, I have shared the data, I will not be tracked, but every action whatever you do through your official email ID, official laptop is getting tracked, and that is being reported to senior management, respective project managers on regular basis, and basis that actions are taken, depending upon the severity of those incidents. Sometimes warning letters are being issued, sometimes separation, as you also gave example. So yeah, all kind of these kind of practices happens nowadays.
Mm-hmm. And not only with
Yeah.
the current job, it also puts a question mark on your future employments as well, because your relieving letter will state
Yeah.
that due to disciplinary actions, you have been asked to leave the company. So your relieving letter will do have a might have a mention for it. Sometimes HR skip it just to safeguard you, and not to have a risk on your future employments. But if HR is very adamant, then you won't be able to help out, right? So you don't
Yes.
want to be unemployable
Correct.
just
Correct.
because you are making some mistakes. Yeah.
Yes. Right. Okay. Okay, then continuing with your our practical examples. So basically, I have chosen five examples based on my experience and examples which are relevant in our practical life. So email, and SMS phishing, wishing was one of the type of attack. And second type, which I would like to highlight, is also very prominent nowadays, is when we are using online shopping apps. So a lot of time you would have seen whenever you are looking for something. For example, you are looking for glasses for you on some of the prominent websites, and then next day you would be seeing, those advertisement would be coming all over YouTube, whatever app you are opening, and that also different kind of advertisement would be coming for that product itself, whatever you are looking. So nowadays tracking mechanism for Google, for that matter, or other application works like that. So some fraudster or attackers are also using those functionality, those kind of tracking, whatever is done by Google, they are also being captured by some third party applications. And sometimes they create a fake application which will look like, for that matter, Amazon or Flipkart. The page will appear exactly like those websites, and that will be coming prominently on Google. So sometime when you'll be clicking on that link, you'll be redirecting to a page which is similar to that of Amazon or Flipkart, and you'll be buying a product and paying, and later you'll be realizing, okay, yeah, this was a fraud activity. So this is another area where we should be very vigilant in our personal life whenever you are visiting any uh, you know uh, application, or please verify, because whenever you are opening a website, on top left corner a lock button will be coming. Once you click on that lock button, it will be showing all the certificates for that website. Specifically, be very vigilant whenever you are visiting any banking website, shopping application, and please do validate and check that lock button. That will give details of all the certificates issued to that particular website. That's very important, because as Shapraji was also mentioning, this is one of the prominent attack in which children's, elderly people, and people of our age also are getting trapped, because functionality of Google for tracking our behavior is being misused by a lot of people, uh, which are trying to commit this kind of frauds. So we should be very vigilant. When we'll be discussing different type of solution, I'll be definitely talking about one of the alternate which you can use, because I have personally, because nowadays I am working on a project which is very specific to data privacy. So I'll also try to share, with my practical uh, experience or exposure, different kind of browsers you can use instead of using Google Chrome. Because in Google Chrome, you'll see, every action of yours is being tracked. Whether if you'll type something, you'll get an advertisement for that product a lot. And even if you search something, that will be uh, coming on top. You'll be getting news related to those things. So a lot of tracking happens when you use Google browser. Maybe I'm not promoting any browser, but yeah, and there is one browser which is DuckDuckGo. You can try using that. What it does is it don't tracks any of your activity. Interface is slightly slow instead of Google Chrome, but in that application, you will be able to see the number of attempts which happened on your device to track your location, track your data, it prevents all such attacks and give you a live visual for all of those tracking things which were happening for your devices. So you can practically download it and try to see how Google and different applications which are installed your phone over phone were trying to track your behavior. So that browser gives you a very good and complete visibility. Specifically for Android users, iOS user, definitely there are a lot of added layer of protection when you use iOS as an operating system. But specifically for Android users, I was saying this. So you can definitely try on that browser and see those attempts which are happening on your device. So anyway, not to divert our topic for today, this I was just mentioning because I'm working on something which was related to that. But coming back to our example, so you should be very vigilant about online shopping whenever you are doing. Be very vigilant about the address, the icon. It may appear to be a same name, same icon, but it'll not. You should verify because sometimes it happens. For example, somebody has impersonated a website which is similar to Amazon. So they'll be using a at the rate instead of a, or they'll be using something as zero instead of o. So like that, they'll be changing the addresses, they'll be changing the icon. So they'll be doing those minor tweaks which are very difficult to be read by someone. So this was second example which I wanted to talk about, that online shopping area where you should be very vigilant about when dealing on day-to-day basis. Now, third example. So what I'll do, I'll just cover the five areas. Then we'll have a conversation around that. If anybody have any thought, then after that we'll move on to the solutions. Once we have answered all the queries and heard from different people. So third example which I could think of is social media privacy. Okay, on social media platforms, sharing too much personal information can also make you a target for identity theft basically. So you should be very vigilant in reviewing your privacy settings regularly. Avoid posting anything sensitive that could be used as a malicious activity. And specifically when you are working in an organization, you know be very vigilant whatever you share, whether you're sharing your workplace photographs, some confidential information. Sometimes we share information about our colleagues, so we should be very vigilant about it, because this can lead to non-compliance with our organizational policy as well as this can lead to some personal harms as well when we are sharing the personal data. Because I remember some time back, not sure for today's age, but it used to be a show off thing. Like I have thousands friend on Facebook. Even we used to send requests to people, accept friend requests with the people whom we are not knowing, and we used to share a lot of content on Facebook. So be very vigilant about it. The people, please ensure the people whom you are connecting, at least you know them, because the Facebook, Instagram, these kind of platforms are such that whatever information you are sharing, that can be used by the persons whom you don't know. So, so definitely the different platforms have different purpose, but platforms where you're sharing your personal information, all those details, be very careful or set the privacy settings accordingly so that any unauthorized person should not be able to access that or use that information. So this was the third thing I wanted to talk about. Now, fourth and very important thing which I would like to highlight, which we generally avoid in our day-to-day life, is having a strong passwords. Okay. So this is very important thing, and I would be talking about this in detail. So how many of you would have changed your Wi-Fi passwords in last say 6 months? I'm sure very less. 1 year, I would say, in 2 years. Even since installation of our Wi-Fi device, we would not have changed the password for that. And that's, I would say, a very risky thing, because if somebody would have got access to those passwords, and another risk is if it's very simple password, then the risk doubles. But if somebody would have, got access to that, and which is very easy nowadays to hack certain passwords, so he would be able to see all your transactions, all your data sharing which is happening onto your network. So we should be very careful while setting up the passwords for our home Wi-Fi, and we should regularly change it. Similarly, we have created certain email IDs. That email ID we are using on different platforms to registering on those platforms. Say I was giving example, right? If you are using some grocery app, food delivery app, some shopping apps, on every platform you are giving your email ID. And a lot of time, what we do is we keep a same password for simplicity on all of the platforms. So that's again a very risky thing. What we do, we keep same password for email ID, same password for social media, same password for social media apps, same password for food delivery apps, even same password for banking application. Even a lot of people, what they do, they use the same password even for their professional Gmail ID or official applications as well. So that's very, very risky. We should have different passwords. Or even second level of protection would be we should have a different email account, because if you are using Google as your primary browser and storage thing, you would be synchronizing your contacts media with that Google account. And if you are using that same account for registering on social media application, different kind of shopping application, a lot of time we don't read even their permission, we just click on allow, 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 and they take permission from us for accessing our contact number, for accessing our medias. So be very careful about it. And definitely, we should have this practice of using different Google accounts for personal use, one separate account, and keep very one specific account only for registering on social media or those kind of food delivery application, grocery application. And maybe you can have that segregation as per your convenience. Maybe for financial transactions, one separate account. So I personally do that, one account for storing all my media contact. That account even is not exposed to any kind of social media platform or food app, and one account I keep specifically for all my banking related thing. So even practically when you do this, you will also realize the account which is not related to anywhere, you will not be getting any kind of spam mail on that email ID. But an email ID which you have given on so many places, food delivery apps, grocery apps, you will be getting a lot of spam mail daily, at least 10 to 15 mails on that email ID. So you yourself can understand, the type of exposure and access that email ID is getting. So that's one thing, but we should be very careful. Even if you are using a single account, select the permissions very carefully while registering on app. But changing password is must. That was the key point I wanted to mention. Say for example, if your one password is getting compromised and you have kept same password for all of your accounts, banking application, that is very, very risky thing. Okay, so we should be very, very careful about it. And the last thread which I wanted to talk about is doing certain transactions on public Wi-Fi. So whenever you are visiting to airport, railway station, be very careful. Maybe for certain exigency, you may want to use those networks, but avoid sharing or doing any kind of financial transactions, or specifically even accessing those networks from your official laptops, because even you would see a lot of companies have those kind of policies where they ask their employees not to use public Wi-Fi, and even some of the company laptop will not be connecting to those Wi-Fi's because they have that kind of restrictions enabled on those devices, because that gives access to somebody who is sitting in that network to monitor your transaction, whatever you are doing. So a lot of company refrain that, because whatever data you'll be sending over those public Wi-Fi can be intruded by some third person, which is also called man in middle attack. You must have heard that terminology. So even not only official, but whenever you are sharing personal data or doing some transaction, please avoid doing using public Wi-Fi. In case of exigency, definitely you have to do some time, but this should not be a practice which you would be doing. So these were some of the threat I wanted to talk about. Now I'll be quickly also talking about some of the things which we should be very vigilant about, and which we can take as a practice in our day-to-day life, even for our official things, which will help us to be a cybersecurity champion, at least not champion, but yeah, to have a basic understanding and be ourselves protected for cybersecurity. But before that, if anybody want to share any thoughts, any questions, we can discuss upon, and then we'll move to that solution part. I'll not take much time, maybe 10, 15 more minutes. But before that, if anybody would like to share any thoughts or any experience about it, or any comments, any questions, I'll be happy to take them.
Yeah, please join us on stage. Only then we can have an interactive session. So Chirag is here to answer all our queries related to cybersecurity. So please make use of him and please join in onto the stage to ask him questions. Yeah. In the meanwhile, Chirag, you mentioned websites, right? So hackers create duplicate websites. I'll say, yeah, wherein you won't make out a difference, and you'll enter your banking details into the website. Do you think
Yes.
apps are more secure in that sense? So if I have to order something from Amazon, should I prefer Amazon app instead? Is it more secure?
Yes, yes, you can say to an extent, because it's difficult to impersonate, because nowadays I would give a comparative and explanation based on my example also, because Play Store, or for that matter the people who are using Android, iOS, which is App Store, they also have their policy, and they also do a level of scrutiny before publishing an app to Play Store or App Store. Whether for iOS, that App Store policies are very stringent, and for Play Store those policies are little bit lenient, on lenient side. So for that reason, you will see on App Store there are very limited application, but on Play Store there are a lot of application. So yes, you are correct in that sense. Using a mobile application would be definitely secure a little bit, because that's difficult to impersonate and get registered on Play Store, because Google will do their own verification for that company who is publishing that application. But yes, then when you are using that application, mobile application, be very vigilant and ensure that you are not downloading that APK from directly from browser, or there are some other app stores also available on Android which provide you different apps which are not there on Play Store, because we are not very sure about their verification mechanism, how they verifying those developers, those organizations. So till the time you are downloading those applications from verified source on Play Store, App Store, that definitely gives you an added layer of security, because one level of verification is already done before publishing those apps onto Play Store or App Store. So yes, we can say in that sense.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Chirag. So we have Jay and Nivas with us. So, Jay,
Good evening, Shibra.
good evening.
Hi, Chirag. At the onset, thank you so much for picking up this topic. Um, so, I've got a couple of questions from the lens of a job seeker and a business analyst. So, the first question is for me to qualify for a job interview or for a job application within a web security project or an organization, what all areas should I be working on? What makes me qualify for that to be applying for the project or an organization? Second, um, what Udemy courses would you recommend? See, as the reasons I'm asking you this question is because I see digital footprint has been increasing, and it will continue to increase in multiple folds, and so will the number of business analysts will be required in this domain. Um, third
Yeah.
question, yeah, third question being okay. The first question was what will make me eligible for an application? Second, Udemy course. I forgot the third question. Sorry, Chirag. You might want to answer the first two, and maybe I'll come back to you on the third one.
Sure, sure. So, thanks. So it's very important, to have a clearer understanding, first of all, in the industry which you're applying for. Say, for example, if that is a financial industry for that matter, or any other sector specific. So first of all, you should be knowing, what kind of regulation that sector is having. That will help you a lot, having a added advantage over others while applying, because nowadays every organization, because there are, as I was mentioning during my explanation also, nowadays, regulatory bodies are becoming very stringent, or even if in certain areas where they are not regulated, but sector specific regulation plays a crucial role and gives an added advantage to those organizations. So first thing is having a very good understanding about sector specific regulations, as well as the regulatory regulations, or for that matter statutory regulation in that area, gives you an added advantage. So when I meant to say those things, you can look those regulations or sector specific guidelines from an IT as well as information security point of view, because in every regulation there will be a particular section which will be talking about 15, 20, or 30 controls about IT and security. So as you mentioned about web application, so it depends in which sector you are trying to go. Uh, Say for example, I'll take example of say financial industry. You are trying to apply for a bank or NBFC or any other organization. So once you will have a good understanding about guidelines from RBI, say if you're applying for an Indian organization, what RBI says in terms of web application security, what kind of mandates they have imposed on banks they should be complied with, what are the controls they recommend. Having good understanding about that, good knowledge about that, even that will be an added advantage on your resume as well. You can mention that you have a good understanding of regulatory requirement in so and so space and so project, or you might be explaining some of the project in your resume while you're applying for certain jobs. So from that perspective also you can try to have a look. So for example, if you are working on a web application project, working on client requirement as an BA, or maybe in a support role, you are troubleshooting those requirements, having a mapping and understanding about those controls. Say for example, some of the RBI controller, I'll take example of ISO controls, which is ISO 27001, which is an industry standard which is used prominently across the organization, that talks about data masking, data encryption in transit, all those things. So whenever you are working on an application project, you can try to see whether the people are having role based access or not, whether data masking can be implemented in certain areas where it is not required to be exposed. Because whenever you're developing application or working on business requirements also, different roles will come in picture. Somebody will be requiring admin roles, somebody requiring access to specific screens, somebody requiring access to maybe one screen, one functionality. So whether role-based access is provision or not, data masking is implemented or not. So understanding of all these controls and requirement will help you a lot. Not only just understanding those controls, but having a good understanding and mapping with the regulatory requirements, sector specific requirement, and then the project requirement as well. So a combination and knowledge of all of three would definitely help you a lot. So I hope that answers your first question. And even these things you can put on your resume as well. Now, second question was Udemy. I exactly, maybe I would not be able to tell you at this stage, but yeah, when you are working on a web application project, definitely you can have an understanding about top 10 vulnerability, which is OWASP top 10. You can get and gain an understanding about that. And even the sector specific regulation, you can search on Udemy, because there are very good courses. Because the people who join in our team, we also gave an access to them for Udemy Professional. In that, there are a lot of sector specific courses. So, for example, if you are going in banking industry, so you can understand those regulation in banking space, or maybe another sector. So, sector specific regulations you can also understand on Udemy. So, you can search on Udemy from that perspective, and you'll be getting a good courses on that.
Thank you, Chirag. Very well explained. Thanks.
Jay?
Yeah, I thanked Chirag, Shipra. I'm not sure if I was audible.
No, your voice broke off in between. I hope your query has been answered. Yeah.
Yes, indeed. Thank you, Chirag. Very well explained. Yeah, many thanks.
Hmm.
Okay,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Um, Nivas, would you like to go next? Nivas? Okay, we'll come to you later. Charan?
Yes, Shipra. May I?
Yeah,
Yep.
sure. Please go ahead.
Hey, Chirag. Hi. So it was very detailed session until now. The knowledge was very informative. Thanks for that. So, however, I'm curious about one of the questions that is hammering around my mind. So, let's say we are a cybersecurity analyst, and you're working for an organization which is developing a software, website. Let's suppose, yeah, the organization developers, and there's a team which is developing a software. So, what if some malware attack or cyber attack is happening on that particular website? So, I'm just curious to understand what steps do you take to repair the website back or to remove that vulnerabilities? Do you have any traditional steps or process to follow?
Yes, yes. So even there are specific guidelines also, a lot of best practices as well as, for incident, even NIST framework talks about it whenever a vulnerability is happening, how you govern that and detect it. So first step is definitely for containing, as you mentioned, the vulnerability or attack is observed in a specific application. So first of all, we should contain that so that that doesn't spread across the network. When in practical scenarios, when such type of situation occurs, firstly we'll try to isolate that particular system from our network so that that doesn't spread across the networks. Okay, so that is the first step. We should take it. Uh, doing that kind of isolation from the network and then doing the containment and recovery. It depends. Like if it is a very critical application, customer facing application, then you should be able to move to your disaster recovery site or backup site. Within no time. So companies have defined, RTO, RPO for those kind of situations, and they have playbooks defined.
Mhm.
So first step is containing that incident, that application, isolating from network, then preparing a backup site. Say if that matter, if that attack has happened on database server or application server, then pointing our databases to our DR site so that normal business operations can perform as it is and they are not impacted. For that matter, if that is a customer facing application, then any business would not want that kind of interruption.
Yeah.
And specifically say if we have a loan application or uh, any kind of application from where we can buy the things, so that business should work as it is. So parallelly that thing happens. After you have isolated that, parallelly we will build a or point our application to our DR so that that can work as a normal operation. Then we do certain forensics on that. We'll analyze what was the source of that incident, and we'll try to recover. If that is a ransomware attack, then we'll try to recover from the situation. Or different type of steps are taken as defined in playbook of the organized. But that is the typical step: isolating, normalizing the situation by pointing our application to DR, and then taking the required steps for containing those incidents and identifying the spread of that particular attack and containing that.
Yeah. So you say that each and every organizations have their specific guidelines for this approach.
Yeah, a lot of
Mhm.
organization that depends. Like I when say I'm working in a BFSI industry, so a regulator itself wants them to have a strict guideline because they would not want the money of the customer. For example, if we are working in a bank and there is an application which stores the amount you are depositing in the bank, and if some attack is happening on that application and somehow the data got altered, so whatever money you had in your bank account, then it may become like 20,000, become 22,000. That will be a very bad situation. So the institutions which are, regulated specifically, they themselves have a very stricter guideline from RBI because specifically bank and the deposit system they are using. I'm just again taking example of financial industry because that is the industry where I closely work with, and we also deal with a lot of regulatory authorities and all. So that's why I'm just giving examples around that, but we can try to relate examples with other industry as well. So coming back to the example, so say I gave example of one application. So if anything is altered in that application, that will be a very embarrassing situation for bank, as well as they'll be penalized by regulatory body. So even regulatory body themselves takes care of those kind of situation, and they themselves have certain kind of regulations defined in that area. Okay, your RPO should be like that, within that limit. Or when I say RPO, like recovery time objective, which is again a technical term, and the time the organization will take to recover from a attack, that is defined as the RTO, and they should have a backup site available for that particular application. And on annual basis, even RBI official visits different banks and NBFC, and they validate what kind of controls they have implemented. And in case of non-compliance, they penalize that. So this is for regulated space, but yeah, in sector-specific things also. So like it might not impact a lot, maybe in a manufacturing industry, but the impact could be critical in the financial industry. So that impact varies, and depending upon that impact, the companies define different kind of policies and different kind of actions are taken depending upon that impact. So while defining those policy, first of all, impact assessment is done whether this application is really critical or not. If that is very, very critical, customer facing, like I gave example of a money depositing system, then it becomes super critical for our organization to have controls in place. But if it is at least critical, maybe control may not be like that. They'll be having, may not be having a backup or DR's disaster recovery site for that application. Maybe they are okay if that gets compromised. Maybe that is an internal server and they have already taken a backup for that particular server. So it varies depending upon the criticality of that application.
Got it, Chirag. Got it. So even before that, how do we identify a threat, a security threat? Do we have any symptoms as such?
Yes, yes. So for symptoms, there are, for example, there are different tools which are deployed within the organization. So say whatever professional laptops or official laptops are allocated to you, a different type of tools are installed. Like traditionally, there used to be antivirus. Now it has replaced by EDRs and a lot of DLP agents and the Security Operations Center, which is the prominent one. So a different kind of use cases are defined, and that is integrated with all of your servers and databases. So a lot of kind of malicious activity which are happening. So those security operations center detects those kind of anomalies. For example, say if somebody was able to install, like I was giving an example of a phishing email. Maybe phishing email, if somebody was able to install a backdoor on your laptop, and then by that he is able to access or intrude your network, and which will having a critical database, and he is able to access that critical database. So what he'll do, he'll try to create some admin user within a database. So those kind of activities are then detected by this security operations center tools. So they will trigger, okay, on so and so date and time, somebody is trying to create an admin user or somebody is trying to create a user. So it again depends what kind of use case you have defined within your organization. So then it triggers an alert to the admin. Okay, somebody is trying to do this kind of activity, whether this is authorized or not. So this is the way. This is one of the typical ways in which we get different kind of alerts if something wrong is happening in our systems.
Mm. Got it. Got it, Chirag. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for the
Okay.
explanation. Over to you, Shipra and Chirag.
Okay.
Hey Chirag, the example that you just gave of creating an admin user in the database, is it in line with manual penetration testing, where an external force try to penetrate a data in the database?
Yes, that again, as I mentioned, depend upon use case to use case. In penetration testing, also this thing is validated. For example, if we are having a critical application, when we do a penetration testing, we try to do that. If somebody is able to enter some data within your application or not by getting unauthorized access. So yes, this is again one of the use case which is part of pen test as well.
Acha. So, Chirag, risk management, the implementation of risk management must be really effective in web security projects. Yeah.
Yes, yes. So risk management overall, say there are two type of things. One is definitely non-financial risk, which your risk team will take care of. Financial, non-financial, and specifically, uh, cybersecurity related risks are also covered in non-financial risk, which covers risk related to all the factors, not just the web application, even risk related to your endpoint security, email security, physical security. For example, if you are able to access your official email on your personal laptop, that's again a risk. If you are able to access some unauthorized websites, if you are able to access your official wi-fi from your mobile phone, if you are able to access your web application like you mentioned, through your personal laptop, if it is not hosted on internet. So all those things are taken into consideration while doing a holistic risk assessment, which will also include web application assessment. Like we do a risk assessment on semi-annual, half-yearly basis, I would say. So we assess all the risk. We firstly define all the domains like physical security domain, then human resource security, then operational security, web application security. So from each and every domain, we have certain controls defined against which we do the assessment or audit, you can say. So yes, you are correct. This is one of the area which has to be covered in overall risk management framework.
Okay, thank you. And who does that? A business
Yeah.
analyst does that, or majorly done by a project manager?
So it's done by the primary responsibility of doing that is with respective process owner. Yes, but maybe it depends organization to organization what role they have defined. It could be project manager also, but accountability lies with the cybersecurity or the chief information security vertical of the organization. They are responsible for getting this conducted across the organization, but definitely the BA and their respective project managers has to be one of the party while doing those kind of assessments because they'll be knowing in and out about the application. Maybe the cybersecurity team would be having a limited visibility and knowledge about working of that application, while the BAs and the project manager will be facilitating those risk assessment processes. But yeah, it will be done by the cybersecurity vertical or the CISO function.
Okay, thank you, Chirag.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so Chirag mentioned disaster recovery plan. So, most of the IT organizations do have disaster recovery plans in place, and they have different levels. So, if a building is impacted, if a city is impacted, if a country
Yeah.
is impacted, or the whole wide world is impacted, right? So that was one of the reasons that because they had this plan in place, that we were able to switch over immediately to work from office to work from home model when the COVID strike, right? So one day you were in office, second day they were saying, work from home, and the switch was smooth. Many IT companies survived just because they had these plans in place. Am I right, Chirag?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. So again, that depends upon, business to business, how they are able to manage. But everybody, like you mentioned, does that kind of business continuity and disaster recovery planning, depending upon, their geography, having an alternative sites or considering different scenarios. Yes, you're correct.
Mm-hmm. And I think many of the businesses failed during COVID time because they didn't had these plans in place, right? So they were like, I'm getting customers. No one thought of the scenario when the customers will stop coming to their doorstep, right? So if they would have planned for something like COVID, and if they would have you know uh, went online, or allowed people to order from home, and things like that, then many businesses, many local businesses would have survived. International businesses, they survived because they had these plans in place, isn't it?
Yes, 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 correct. Absolutely.
Hmm. Yeah. So let me check if Nivaz is with us. Nivaz, you there?
Yes, I'm here. Just give me 1 minute. Just give me 1 minute.
Yeah, sure. In the meanwhile, I'll request other speakers also to join in and let us know if they have any queries for Chirag. Yeah. So Chirag, while we are waiting for Nivaz, who are the usual customers of a cybersecurity business analyst? Is it more like internal in-house, employees of the organization, or do we get to deal with some outside clients as well?
Yes. So that depends on two factors. Definitely, internal users will be our customer, but that depends what kind of role and organization you are working in. So primarily customers would be in-house, but as I was mentioning earlier as well, if your role is such that you'll have to deal with a lot of regulatory bodies, or you are working in an environment where you deal with a lot of vendors, then definitely you have to engage with a lot of third-party vendors, regulatory body officials, as well as consultant, because for doing some specific task, we a lot of time get some activities done through some third party consultants for doing certain audits and all within our organization. So that depends purely upon the role you are working in or the profile you are working in. So there are both the scenarios. Definitely in both the roles, internal users of the organization would be our customer. As somebody was mentioning, performing risk assessments, that's the typical classical example. While doing that, you have to engage with a lot of internal stakeholders and doing a lot of other activities like we were discussing about DLP monitoring. While doing that, you have to deal with a lot of internal users and guiding them, spreading the awareness. So definitely, internal user would be remaining one customer, but depending upon the organization plus role you are working in, you might have to deal with external parties, consultants, regulatory bodies as well. So you'll have to then explain, engage with them, understand their requirement. Certain times you have to, be participant in one of the audits. So then and there you have to, deal with different officials, consultants. So it depends.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, makes sense.
It's,
Nivas, you're available?
Yeah, I'm here. Am I audible?
Yes, you are. Please go ahead.
Actually, I had two questions, but I think one of them was already discussed. So I just have one. I don't know whether you have discussed already, but just want to understand. So these cybersecurity checks are on like uh, predefined, right? So what will be the role of the business analyst here? Like whether we going to, I mean, it could be like implemented for all the applications, like whatever is like just coming up, or it is going to be developed. It will be in the planning stage. So what will be be a role in it? Whether they have to, like only the documentation part, or are we going to like suggest them something new to use? So that was my question.
yes. Okay. Okay. Yeah. So already, as you mentioned, like partly we discussed this, but I'll just reiterate on that. So it depends. Like as you mentioned, some checks are already defined. Some there is, whenever a new development is happening, there is a checklist which is there. Okay, these are the controls to be followed. But as an BA, having, as I was mentioning earlier, as an BA, when you have the clearer understanding of all the controls and requirement and working knowledge of those controls, for example, having a role-based access for a web application, implementing data masking, data interrupt, encryption. This can give you an added advantage, like as an BA, when you are understanding the business use cases, understanding the business requirement, and assisting in developing those functionality. So you can intrinsically think about it and bring those control while developing those application in practicality. So having a checklist defined is one part, but while developing a new application, when you have a good working understanding of those controls, that definitely makes a difference, because you'll be very well aware whenever you are working on a project. Okay, so and so control. So for example, if somebody from a business team is asking for a full access to an application, so you'll be very vigilant when you have the knowledge of the control. Okay, uh, you are asking for full screen, but do you really require those kind of data field? If you don't require so and so field, can it not be masked? Okay, will you require to download the data in bulk? So for example, you are developing an application where say, take example, a customer service team would be accessing details of a particular customer. So if they require only calling and seeing the address, why to show all the data to them? Other fields could be masked. And then another use case could be whether they really require to download that customer data. Okay, if they are able to download, whether they are able to download only on the official machine or personal machine. So once you'll have the understanding, you'll be able to think out a lot of use cases in your mind while developing those application, and that will give you an added advantage. Having checklist is one thing, because checklist might not be able to cover all the use cases, but as in BA, when you're dealing with the business team, understanding the requirement, translating those requirement into real projects, and then at that time, when you are having an understanding and practical implementation knowledge about those controls, and you are able to think out different ways around a person can misuse that. So once you have a basic understanding, you'll able to develop that kind of mindset. Okay, these are the different ways in which data can be taken out from the application. These are the ways in which a hacker can intrude the application. So it's all about having that kind of mindset, which will not be addressed by any kind of checklist. In a way, checklist can definitely assist you in setting the guidelines. Okay, you have to define some data masking controls, you have to implement data encryption, but when you are able to think you know uh, and make out something out of that practically, that will give you an added advantage.
Okay, okay, understood. So another one,
Yeah.
for a new application, whether it's going to be payment side or it's going to be insurance side, like what will be the basic, checklist we should have? Like what kind of the checks we usually do?
Yes. So while developing an application, like say I mentioned insurance sector, so there are specific guidelines from IRDA if I talk about India. So it should be followed. Like some of the controls, I would say, if that is a application which is a customer facing, so you should have a UAT production environment. There should be a network segmentation between them. So there are different controls which has to be taken care into consideration, like how you are hosting that application, whether that is very critical application for your business. So we have to do that kind of full-fledged risk assessment for that application, so which will give us a clearer picture. Okay, what is the criticality of that application for your organization? Do you really require to have a disaster recovery site for that application? How you are going to host that application? Okay, whether you are hosting that application within India outside India, what regulator says. Okay, if they says you have to host within India, so that's again another consideration that you have to take. What will be the audience of that application? Whether some of your vendors will be using, customers will be using, or your internal teams will be using. If internal teams will be using, is it really required to be hosted over internet, or can it be accessed through VPN? If directly, if your customer is accessing and you're publishing that application on internet, does you have taken consideration of data encryption or not? Does it use HTTP, HTTPS? So some of the controls I mentioned, like 7 8 controls. So these are the basic controls which has to be taken into consideration. And detailed guideline you can read, you can refer the NIST framework, ISO 27001 framework, or specifically for insurance sector, you can read the IRDA guideline. There was a detailed cybersecurity document which was published recently within this year itself, which have no, not this year, last year in 2023, which has very detailed guidelines about cybersecurity and which mentions all of the granular control as well, which has to be implemented while developing an application. Like they mentions about VAPT cycles of that application, hosting details of that application, disaster recovery backup plan of that application. So there are so many details about it.
Okay. Uh, Thanks, Chirag. This helps a lot. Thank you for the session
Okay,
as well. Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, thanks, Chirag. So I think we
Mm.
are nearly there. Any last questions for Chirag before we wrap up? I'll take that as a no. So thanks, Chirag. Thanks a lot. Thanks for joining us today. And we hope that you'll become a regular speaker on our platform. So it was a really nice and detailed
Sure.
session, and I hope you also liked being part of the club, um, and you'll join us
Yeah.
frequently. Yeah. So thanks a lot. Thanks for taking up this opportunity, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Chirag. Thank you, Shipra.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks all. Thanks for joining us today.
Good night, everyone.